I have a motion on the clerk general,
So moved. Yes.
and yes, and the requisitions.
So moved. And yes.
Yes. You have an add-on?
It's not an add-on. I have one resolution that was not on the consent agenda. I have a resolution to accept the tentative agreement regarding negotiations between the Warren County Engineer and the Warren County Highway Employee Association Union.
So moved. And yes.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes?
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Tina?
That's all that I have.
Okay, great. Then Suzanne, you're up. Good morning.
Good morning. The Regional Planning Commission is here this morning to present to you the Assessment of Fair Housing, or AFH, and they're going to ask for a resolution to adopt that plan. So I'm going to give you just a little bit of background information. As you know, Warren County is the recipient of funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. We use those funds through the Community Development Block Grant Program, the CDBG program, mostly for infrastructure in low-income areas. And we also fund the Abuse and Rape Crisis Shelter, as well as Family Promise Homeless Shelter. And additionally, the Metropolitan Housing Authority receives funds from U.S. Department of HUD as well. One of the requirements to continue receiving these funds is to have two plans in place every 5 years. One is the consolidated plan that will come to you next year, but this year they're working on the assessment of fair housing. The main idea of this assessment is to identify fair housing issues and to address them and to come up with goals. This document is not just a list that regional planning came up with, but it's following a specific guidance and rules that the U.S. Department of HUD has in place. Planning Commission has worked very hard over the last year to develop this plan. They've held over 10 meetings with key stakeholders from different agencies, such as community services, the health department, school superintendents, and met with them. They also held 2 public meetings where citizens could come. So after learning about everyone's passions and issues that they are facing, they gathered all of the data, and then they developed this plan. This plan, as I had said, it's in compliance with the U.S. Department of HUD. It's addressing some issues like affordable housing and things such as that. And so they are going to present to you what they've come up with and ask for a resolution.
Good morning.
Morning. Thank you very much, Suzanne. So my name is Cameron Goshinsky. I'm a planner with the Warren County Regional Planning Commission. And this morning I'll be going over those goals and recommendations that we have outlined in the plan itself. Before we go into those goals, I do have a few slides just covering the process and timeline that we followed. Taking a look at the process, step 1, today, obviously, as Suzanne mentioned, we are seeking a resolution to approve this plan to continue utilizing CDBG funding, and that this plan will affirmatively further fair housing. And step 2, including the goals and information obtained in the AFH in the consolidated plan that will be next year. And then taking a look at the process and timeline, as Suzanne mentioned, there were 11 total meetings, 9 focus groups, 2 public meetings, and here you can see the breakdown for each section, ranging from stakeholder consultation and outreach, that's that data collection, and then on to submission to HUD this month. And this whole plan is outlined in the HUD manual, as there's a big focus on public participation. And then taking a look at the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and the Fair Housing Act, it prohibits discrimination in housing-related activities based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, familial status, and disability. The Ohio Fair Housing Act includes military status and ancestry. A big reason we touch on this is these are the protected classes that this plan intends to cover. So any goal that's outlined within this plan seeks to address the protected classes that are outlined here. So if you see anything in the plan or in these slides that mention protected class, this is who that's referencing. And then on to what is actually meant to be included in terms of the requirements for the AFH. There's 3 focal points determining who lacks access to opportunity and address any inequity among protected class groups. That list that we had on the previous slide. promoting integration and reducing segregation, and then transforming racially or ethnically concentrated areas of poverty into areas of opportunity. Those are both HUD-defined terms. May hear that referred to as a recap, and then areas of opportunity, we'll touch on that in one of the goals. And then on to the recommendations. So the first one, update zoning codes that have a disparate impact on fair housing. This is a continuing goal from the previous 2018 analysis of impediments. The main focus for this goal is to include one of these listed metrics for mixed-use cluster developments, range of housing types, group and recovery homes, listing one of those in 2 zoning codes over the course of the next 5 years. For 2, expanding fair housing training. This is another continuing goal from the 2018 analysis of impediments. Partnering with Housing Opportunities Made Equal to provide fair housing training to residents, tenants, landlords, realtors, and government officials, just to make everyone more aware of what fair housing law is, and to ensure that they are aware that they are conforming with existing law. 3, analyzing transit and transportation options. There's 3 metrics for this. Reestablishing a transportation advisory committee. That's already been done. Establishing a pilot program that improves transportation efficiency within a selected community. That would involve just identifying a target community that could benefit from a similar program to what we have currently with the Lebanon Loop. And 3, contacting state legislators to discuss the impact of size requirements for vehicles transporting students. And what we've heard from various school districts is there is state legislation which requires them, if they're transporting a student outside of a school district, to use a bus or a van that has to be at least 8 passengers, even if it's just one student that they're transporting. So they're speaking currently with state legislation to potentially bump that down to maybe just a car if you're just transporting one student to improve cost and efficiency. Number 4, neighborhood improvements. Developing comprehensive area plans for areas of low opportunity. Again, that's that HUD-defined term. What they're referring to when they say areas of low opportunity, that's referencing access. So access to employment, services, grocery stores, healthcare providers. So it would be Regional Planning Commission developing comprehensive area plans for what we have outlined as 2 jurisdictions, which are HUD-defined areas of low opportunity. Number 5, greater participation in advanced education, vocational schools, and financial literacy programs. For this metric, that would involve providing resources and brochures for students and parents on the opportunities that are available for them. What we've heard from various focus group participants is there's a lack of participation, specifically among students and first-time home buyers or young professionals, but a lack of participation in financial training, whether it's wealth management, debt, or credit counseling, as well as advanced educational opportunities, and just making sure that everyone's aware of what opportunities are actually available for them. Number 6, addressing mental health disparities. There are 3 metrics for this, and these all align with what is included in the health department's community health assessment and community health improvement plan. This would involve partnering with Mental Health Recovery Board of Warren and Clinton County. That would to address mental health trends that have been occurring over the past 5 years. Establishing a mental health advisory task force to address the current marketing strategies and any overlap that may exist between programs that health agencies offer. And then strengthening and continue the sobriety treatment and reducing trauma program. For number 7, encouraging school-based health centers, establishing a new school-based health center or cognitive behavioral therapy program. The Franklin City Schools and Little Miami School District currently already have school-based health centers. What these are, they function beyond just what a school nurse is able to provide, but they have nurses and doctors that would be in a separate building or attached to the building and would be able to offer a wider array of healthcare services to students within the district. We've heard from Mason City Schools, they're interested in a school-based health center, although it's still early on. Number 8.
So when you say you've heard from, so you're making recommendations to the board?
These would be the goals that would be included in the plan themselves.
So there's a goal, and yet regional planning is actually trying to implement the goals now? You're reaching out to Mason City schools and saying they're interested in this?
No, Mason City Schools informed us we had a discussion about school-based health centers, and Mason City Schools had informed us they were pursuing or considering to pursue a school-based health center.
So you asked them as part of the community feedback, but someone brought up community-based health centers to them.
Correct, yeah, there's a long list in the AFH about what should be mentioned at these public participation meetings. One of those was over healthcare in schools. So when we touched on that, we had Franklin City Schools there that was at the meeting as well as Little Miami. Both had indicated to us that they have their own school-based health center, and Mason City Schools were aware of what that was and informed us that they were considering that as well. Do you have any more questions? Or?
Well, I've got plenty of questions, but I'm not going to do it right now.
For number 8, evaluating scattered site public housing versus concentrated public housing options. This one's definitely listed in the HUD manual. And what we've heard from various housing providers is they're just interested in a preference in terms of what the county would rather see or what they would have a greater interest in, as opposed to scattered site throughout the county or concentrated in specific neighborhoods located throughout the county. For number 9, promoting affordable quality childcare access. This would involve contracting with a childcare service provider to promote affordable and quality childcare access. That's already being accomplished through 4C. And then working to encourage a major on-site employer-sponsored childcare facility. That would just to encourage and to provide more resources for parents looking to re-enter and remain within the workforce. And number 10, providing accessible housing for the aging and people with disabilities. This is another continued goal from the previous analysis of impediments to promote visitability and universal design in zoning codes and comprehensive plans. And this would also be over the course of the next 5 years as well. And those were the 10 goals that we have outlined. I have a couple more slides, but do you have any questions thus far on the goals themselves?
I'm just curious if there is anything that is new to, are there any domains that are new to this plan as opposed to the last one that was adopted 5 years ago?
Yeah, so the first 2 that I mentioned, as well as the last one, those are both continued goals.
Mm-hmm.
The other 7 are all new goals that were covered on the assessment of fair housing that weren't on the analysis of impediments.
Thank you.
So number 1, why is regional planning, I assume you've always done this, why is regional planning charged with developing the plan?
Suzanne might be
This plan, as you know, is required by the U.S. Department of HUD. One office has to do it. They have the staff, the administration, and the experience. So, and you're right, historically, they've always done the plan.
And our last plan was in compliance?
Yes, yes.
And why didn't we just renew that?
Well, part of the plan is to reevaluate to see what the issues are, not just carry over the same issues, but to actually reach out to the different agencies and the public to see if the issues are still current or if they're changing or developing.
So when we talk about there's 7 new recommendations, that was at our discretion? It's not mandated that we make those 7 recommendations from housing and urban development?
Those 7 were focus points that HUD wanted. So what we did in 2018 was the analysis of impediments. They've since shifted from that to the assessment of fair housing, which has a new outline and a new focus that they want to have on key focus areas. And these are in compliance with what those key focus areas are for the assessment of fair housing.
So the recommendations you've just gone through, 1 through what, 10?
Yes.
Which numbers were new?
3 through 9.
And what are we doing about those?
Those would be goals that we would aim to achieve within the next 5 years. And there is a big shift in the assessment of fair housing on implementation now. So giving an actual metric and time frame, as well as listing out responsible program participants that would be carrying out each listed goal.
And so what is our participation as a county and a county commission in doing these things?
It would be approving the plan, and then.
What does that mean to approve this plan? What do we, what, so we approve a plan that says that, there should be new school-based health center and cognitive behavioral therapy programs.
I think, I
What-
call these soft goals because we don't have the authority to go to the school.
And I don't
tell
feel
them
like
to do
I
this.
am,
So I think
okay.
the wording that they used was strategic. They used the word encourage. So they are encouraging schools to do that because we have no authority. We can't go there and tell them how to run
But
their
is
system.
HUD mandating we adopt that as a soft goal?
Yes, correct, yes, yes.
So why doesn't the federal government in its wisdom that's all-knowing, why don't they just hand us a plan and say, you have to adopt this if you want these federal dollars for low-income areas on a community development block grant program, which is essentially all they're doing.
Yeah, I think they're wanting it to be more specific towards the community, for us to do the research and find out specifically where we are, assess it, and tailor it more to Warren County.
But they're telling us what to do.
They're telling us the outline, yeah, and then fill in.
well, the 7 things, the 7 new things, are those specifically imposed on us to do?
Well, they're goals, but as Suzanne mentioned, they're emphasized to say, encourage or promote, not necessarily something that has to be established, but a focus area, but not necessarily, dead set on having to be.
But we have to do this, is that right?
Correct. We have to approve.
We have to have a plan. We
Correct.
don't, but that's the point, is do we have to incorporate these new targeted areas that the federal government's telling us we have to do? Do we have to incorporate those into this plan in order to participate in the CBDG program?
Good morning, Commissioners. Stan Williams with the Warren County Regional Plan Commission. This is a new process that different from the first plan that we did in 2018. The 2018 plan was an analysis of impediments to fair housing, and there are specific guidelines for that process. This is now an assessment of fair housing. So there are different processes, different review processes by HUD as well too. They have focused a lot more on the implementation of the goals and objectives. Previously, they would just accept a plan that was submitted to them, possibly even without further review. Now, today, they're reviewing those plans, and we have to do an annual report to show some progress. Each year, Susan does a report back to show that there is some progress. Typically, that progress is just organic or generic, and it just comes from some things that the communities have done themselves, or that we have provided leadership for.
Well, seeing how and perhaps it's my fault for not reading or seeing this ahead of time, I would like a little more time to actually review this before we adopt a plan that has the stamp of approval of this board, especially when, is this mandated by the federal government, or is each one of these a check-the-box area of the federal government, or we, in our wisdom, via regional planning, have now adopted this and are saying this is a goal that essentially is the commissioner's goal.
No, I don't think it's saying it's the commissioner's goal. What we're required to do at the county, someone has to conduct a process by which you engage members of the community who bring forth in the domains that the federal government outlines their sort of barriers and approaches to solving the barriers that they identify. It does not, it is merely accepting of the recommendations of the broader community that engaged in this process, many of whom are already working on some of these issues, and they've identified goals that they're working towards. So when one of the metrics is the school health what's the word I'm looking for? School-based health centers, thank you. It's merely a reflection that those in the schools are identifying that, and they've asked it to be a metric as part of this plan because they're actively working towards it. It is not an endorsement of any one thing by the commission. Now, it is true, based on this, I believe, that RPC may come back to the commission with updates to zoning regulations as a part of this, or as they're reviewing zoning regulations, could take this in consideration, but in no way does it bind this board from approving any zoning based on this or anything else. As I understand it, it's merely the requirement on us by HUD is to have a stakeholder process, to have a way to hold ourselves as community accountable, and that these things are identified by the broader community that they are actually working on already.
How many people would you have show up at a focus group?
It varied, from, I think the home builders was about 32, to sometimes 5 or 6.
Okay, so
So
that,
by stakeholder group, you did it.
Yes, we did several stakeholder groups. But I'd just like to probably talk about one of the things that we included in the plan are past successes. And a lot of the things are just things that we know the communities have worked on naturally, just not without direction. Or, for example, we have included improvements to what are the name of the parks?
Well, I agree,
The
look,
basin.
I'm sorry. No, I agree with Commissioner Young's point that I'd like more time to look at this. Well, it's one thing to encourage somebody to do something or whatever, and I'm not sure, the vagueness of this is such that I'm not even sure exactly what I'm encouraging. But then when it does all sorts of things about telling me that we're gonna establish something or contract to do something, then I'm like, really? Who's doing that? That's us? We're contracting? We're establishing? We're forcing this on people?
No, I don't think we are at all.
Well, but that's my point. When we're doing a plan that says that something's to be established or contracted for, I'd like to, what do you mean we're doing a plan that we're doing that? I mean, somebody's supposed to do that? And if it's not us, who is it?
I think what the contract was from the commissioners, the contract for us to do the plan.
No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about if there is a contract with child care service provider to promote affordable and quality child care access, with whom is the contract? We have a contract with them, for example, as part of our ARPA dollars to create more family home-based childcare. I suspect this is one of the things that they are telling the U.S. Department of HUD that we are doing in this domain that they have identified. So that's been done. They're counting the things that we have already done in a single contract.
which I appreciate this, and again, but from a practical standpoint, especially I know plans, especially when it comes to zoning and things like that, affect residents. And I read, as Commissioner Grossman rightly pointed out, there's at least 2 or 3 of these that the first bullet point, encourage school-based health centers. Okay, but then there's an action item. Establish a new school-based health center or cognitive behavioral therapy program. Most of the school districts in this county are borderline broke. And it's like, now we're gonna put a new mandate on them to come in and start getting into that business?
I just think, Dave, that they heard what they are already doing, and what this is reflecting are the things that they are already doing. So they have collected from the community partners what has happened, what they're working on. That's what they're saying, yes, we're gonna do these things. It is not a document designed to say, you all need to do this. they had a process that said, tell us what you're doing in these domains, establish metrics based on what those partners are already saying we're doing. That's the way I understand this particular stakeholder process. I'm totally happy, however, with you know, putting this on next week's agenda, to give you all time to meet with these folks and make sure you're comfortable with it. But the things that I see on this proposal, I'm simply seeing things that I have firsthand knowledge of that are actually already happening. That's all.
And one thing I did want to touch on
And
as
so,
well.
and so wait a second, I want to follow up.
Except for those things that are in our purview will come back to us to determine if, on zoning, for example, if it's in our community, if it's under our zoning authority, you know, that's all works through our regular zoning process, and we would maintain, we're not under any obligation to do anything based on the fact that the community brought forward this plan.
So where this plan, Commissioner Jones, where this plan says to establish something or a contract to do something or whatever, the only reason why that's being included is because it's already done.
Or
It's not a
it's-
recommendation, it's something that's already happened, and it's not gonna be expanding it to some other area.
I think it's at the, it are the things that organizations in this community have already said they're doing. So we are trying to count, to check boxes towards the obligation we have to the Department of HUD in exchange for the CBDG resources to say, yes, we're doing things. It doesn't mean the county commission is doing things. It means the community came together. This is what they're saying they're doing, and that's the plan that they brought forward. Keeping in mind that any suggestion or recommendation around zoning is general in nature, and zoning in our purview is gonna come back to us in whatever process RPC does their, you know, zoning updates. So that's always gonna be.
Fair enough. It sounds like
within
we're
our
not gonna
purview.
figure that out right now. Yeah, let's just, we've got a hearing, let's bring it back up. When is the deadline to adopt a plan?
Yeah, we would like to have it done this fall.
Okay,
Good.
so
Thank
we'll
you.
get it back on the schedule and get that. Thanks so much. Okay, we now we're a little behind on administrative, hearing on a site plan review application of NNG Takar Oil LLC in Turtle Creek Township. We intend to continue this hearing, but I'm happy to, if there are folks here who wish to speak on this, we'd be happy to take testimony now, or you can do it when we continue that.
Anybody that's here, I posted a letter. Did anybody receive this letter? Would you like a copy? It's for the commission. They were given a copy. I don't know if you have it with. Anybody want one?
Okay, so I guess I'm trying to find out from the residents who are here, is there anybody who wishes to speak to the board today? Versus when the hearings continue? We already have it, sir. Thank you.
You might want to explain that our law director's not here today, and so there's an interest on the commission's part. We are going to continue the hearing today, and because we understood that there are people that could be here that may be inconvenienced by coming back at another time, that's why an opportunity is being given to you to speak today. Otherwise, it's propitious from our standpoint to have this at the date of the continuation. On the other hand, we have, what's our next, we have a public hearing at 9:45, which we have to open at that time. So we've got, 11 minutes here that we can hear from somebody about this.
So let me just start this way and say, we're gonna open the public hearing, and for the record, I'd like for the clerk to read into the record when the site was posted with signage stating the site would be subject to a public process and where to get additional information, how and when written notice of this hearing was sent to the applicant and all owners of the property within 500 feet from the parcel lines of the site subject of this hearing, and details when the clerk advertised the public notice in a newspaper of general circulation.
The site was posted with signage on August 28th, 2023. Notices were mailed to the applicant and adjacent property owners on August 4th, 2023, and it was advertised in the Journal News of Lebanon and Mason on August 20, 2023.
Great. So, we're not gonna hear your testimony today, but, if there is any resident here who'd like to speak today, you will be given another chance when we continue the hearing, but I don't want to, keep anybody from testifying if, it could be that you're not available at the next hearing.
Why are we being delayed?
As Commissioner Grossman said, our law director is not here, so we are happy to take testimony today, but we will also have another hearing to hear this matter when our law director is present.
So you had people take time off of work?
No, I'm happy to take,
Situation I had.
Hey, sir, don't do this. I mean, she can call you up and you can talk, but
Talk to you?
you can come up and be addressed to the board, but you've already started talking about 3 times. So why don't you come up?
What's wrong with that? I thought
Because it's a public hearing and we have an order. That's what's wrong with it.
you said the key word.
sir, if you would,
And we determine when the public speaks on this matter. It's a public hearing.
if you'd like to just state your name and address for the
Sure,
record.
Doug Jesse. I live at 5789 Green Tree.
Okay, and
This
so.
is supposedly going 500 feet from my property. The first,
Sir, before you speak, I need to swear you in. This is a
Okay.
public hearing,
You got a Bible?
so please, you don't need a Bible. I just need you to affirm that you will tell the truth while you're in this public hearing.
I do.
Thank you.
Okay. So I live at 5789 Green Tree Road. Been there for almost 30 years. It's a nice little area for us. The situation I have with your letters that you sent out to people within 500 feet, it actually went to 5 residents, 5 people, 30 days before this hearing. Now, I think that was wrong. I think it's. Pardon?
Ma'am, we'll gladly provide you an opportunity to speak.
So first of all, the number one issue about just 5 people is also, this was sent out 30 days before this meeting. The meetings during the day, which probably cut the participation in half for the other people around the area that couldn't come because of work. So I think it was, from the very beginning, this was not discussed until 30 days before. I see some of the dates on the paperwork. It's been going on for a while. To notify us within 30 days, I think is a little miscarriage, and to have it at 9:20 in the morning when it's for us, for our convenience, not the board, not the county. And I know you probably have protocol, but we all work. And to take time off, it doesn't seem right to me.
Sir, that's why we generally continue these till a Thursday night, so the public can come.
So why do we come this morning? To have it continue? Why don't we just say the meeting's on Thursday night?
Because a lot of times, these are very, administrative hearings like these for zoning generally don't get much attention. And so they're generally scheduled here. If the public has an interest in this, we continue it so the public can show up en masse. That has been, for
Good.
20 years, the way we do it.
Okay.
And I guess I just want to say, it's like, this is not something that we're bringing forward. It's something that was filed with us, for which we have to have a hearing process. So from our standpoint, there's always work that's happening outside of the board. But in order to then get the board to render a decision about it, is when we have to start the process, and the 30 days is when that, by the Ohio Revised Code, when that has to happen. So it's not, this is not something that the commission is bringing forward that wants to do. It's an outside party, and so we're just simply trying to get all of the facts and information and provide opportunity for everyone who wants to speak, write, engage with us in some way, share their facts or opinions about things. We're just simply trying to create a forum to do it. We don't have a preconceived notion. This is beginning the process for us to take testimony from all of the parties, question all of the parties, to then be able to render a decision. So
Okay.
this is not something we're bringing to you. It's something we're being asked in our capacity to hear all of the sides.
Yeah, a property owner has the right to file this, which, that's the applicant. The applicant filed the paperwork, the clerk sets up the meeting just in a perfunctory way. Then we see, wait a second, there's public interest in this. We generally then just continue it so the public can have the opportunity, because we get it. People in Warren County work. That's one of the beauties of Warren County. So we understand, that's why we have Thursday evening meetings. And the 30-day rule is under the Ohio Revised
Yeah,
Code.
I figured that.
So that's not our rule. We just follow the law when it comes to these zoning applications. And so this is just another administrative thing. When we see people have an interest in it, because we get a lot of these, most of the time, there's one person shows up or whatever, people don't care. People care about this one. So that's why we're continuing it to an evening session so the public can speak. It's as,
Fair.
And the other thing, let me comment, and I do not know what happened in this particular case, but the law also not only has stipulations with regard to holding these hearings when an application's been made, but it also has requirements with regard to notice and who you notify, and whether you notify through some public notice in a newspaper or something like that, or who you have to mail notice to. And in this case, I understand that notice was mailed to everybody within 500 feet of the particular project, and I'm guessing that that is the mandate of Ohio law, and that's why the notice was given that way. So,
It doesn't seem, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, so I'm saying is that our staff, when they get this isn't something that we as the commission rule on. They follow the law.
Yeah. And so I understand that there's someone here who believes they're within that 500 feet and didn't get notice. And so we can check with the clerk to make sure that that's accurate. But there are 15 property owners that we had identified that were in that 500 feet regulation. And so if we've missed someone, we're sorry, and we can try to remedy that.
Well, I don't understand why it's just 500 feet.
That's what the Ohio
That's what the law
Revised
says.
Code.
yeah, it's not our rule, that's the law.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was saying is that our staff gets these because the law sets up how the process works. And then the law sets up the timing of when notice has to be given, 30 days, at least 30 days in advance. And the law sets forth how notice is to be given. And in addition, frequently the law provides not only actual notice to specific people at their addresses by some letter, but it also sometimes requires publication of the notice in some generally recognized publication, like the newspaper. I don't know if that happened in this case.
Yes,
It did.
she testified, went,
To the Journal News of Lebanon and Mason, which is our newspaper of general circulation.
Okay,
And it was
just-
advertised on August 20th.
And that, again, is done pursuant to state law. So
or our zoning code.
okay, exactly. So that's what's going on here.
But the only, I'll shut up then. The only issue I have with this, it was given to 5 people, residents that live in that area.
Not, I know all these other people own property there, but they wouldn't be in favor of this getting not approved.
Well,
So the resident, then you'd have to go outside the 500 feet. So that's why I don't understand, well, gee, maybe we should have notified all of Turtle Creek.
yeah, well, we're definitely challenged by the
But then
fact,
there's a cost of doing that. So every zoning, so we're gonna treat this one different than every other zoning, so then there's a cost of doing that. And again, under Ohio law, this is the way they tell us to do it.
and, you know, the reality is people don't get their news from newspapers, too much anymore, and that used to be a common way people heard about these sorts of things. So, you know, we publish our agendas, we try to be as transparent as possible. I guess I just wanna make sure that we get off on the, you know, in the right place, that people understand if we've made an error and somebody was left off and sits in here, we wanna be able to check our records and make sure we remedy that. We understand that you don't like that, you know, rule, and so we try to make other accommodation, and our zoning regulations require us to do certain things, like print it in the newspaper and others, and we get that that's not perfect either. And, you know, it is not a perfect system, but the reason those specifics are put into the regulation is to ensure that under every circumstance, we are operating without, you know, prejudice and doing the same thing in every circumstance.
I
So
understand that.
it's not perfect, and, you know, we know that.
Now you don't have time to go and see, well, how many people actually live in this.
Yeah, I mean, we're pulling up records to do that, and sometimes, you know, we're humans, and maybe, someone was left off, but we do our level best. It's in our interest to notify those that we're required to notify, because we don't have a point of view about this particular issue until we have the process and hear from all of the parties and have a chance to take the evidence and hear the questioning and hear the concerns. And so what I was simply saying is that we're going to continue it. We can continue it at a date where people can participate, and that at the same time, I'm recognizing that people may have made special accommodation in order to be here today, and they want to be able to share their point of view. You're not giving up your right, you know, to have this conversation when we have the hearing, but just out of respect to people's time, if people want to share that, we want to be able to take that testimony today. That's what we're trying to do.
I fully understand.
Right, and the other thing I would say is this, I'm guessing that those of you who came today came because you object or have some concerns about the project. Because typically when people advance this type of thing, the public doesn't come to cheer it on. And we determined or whatever, maybe when I was not on council, but I'm familiar with that kind of project, and I know that this causes and can cause a lot of angst and concern by people such as yourselves.
It's just, all of a sudden I get a letter, I mean, we basically live in the country, but it's 5 minutes from like.
Right, and there was a proposal many years ago to develop this area with a major hospital and technology center, and to make a full interchange at Green Tree. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay, I was very familiar with that. I was involved with that at the time too. So I know that the people on Green Tree care an awful lot about their area, and you know that Union Road is developed in very different ways now, and they put that roundabout in there that helped with the traffic flow that was increasing. As you know, those roundabouts always because when you have a stop sign, it backs up, and I'm sure you probably experienced that for years. So I think that I'll again chime in with what our president of our commission said, Commissioner Jones, and that is that we're cognizant that you all came today. We're going to continue it and put it at a time when more people can come, but we don't want to to not honor the fact that you took your time out of your schedules, and if you want to speak, we want to allow you to do that.
I understand. Okay. Sorry it was a little rude.
It's all
Lot of-
good.
We're used to it.
It's all good. You're passionate about it. And again, I was trying to get it under control simply because we knew what was happening and we're trying to set it up for the residents.
Okay.
It's not we're trying to kick everybody out to continue it, to do it in the dark. No, it's just the opposite. We're trying to do it in the evening where anyone that wants to speak can come and do it.
Great. That was everybody's big concern is after this is up and going, the traffic around there. And it is gonna accept 18-wheelers too. There's diesel pump.
And I get all of that, and and I've, you know, obviously, I told you that I was familiar with what happened at Bethany and Mason Montgomery Road.
Some lady called it our little slice of heaven in that area, lady, but been there, sounds half a mile from me. She's been there 26 years, and, so, anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We'll reschedule.
All right, thanks for your time, appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please, and then I'll need to swear you in.
My name's Donald Adams. I live at 5861 Green Tree Road.
Sir, do you swear to tell the truth?
I swear to tell the truth.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm not going to talk about the proposal today because this is the first I'm really seeing the diagram of it, even though it's next door to me. But I do want to talk about notification real quickly. It was stated that the letters were sent to the residents on August 4th, correct? Mine's dated August 14th, which is less than 30 days. That's just the first point. I mean, for what it's worth. Second point I want to make on notification is that it says call a certain number on here if you have questions. I called the number twice, left messages. I've received no call back. Third thing, there's a sign posted there that there's a zoning hearing, and it says if you want more information, go to a certain website. I went there. I cannot in any way find any information about this anywhere at that website. And I cannot even find that this meeting was taking place today at that website. So I just want to make those points.
No,
We'll talk about the specifics later, but this is
Yeah,
my.
I
issues on
appreciate you
notification.
raising that. We'll look into all three of those items to make sure. Did the signage at the location include the date of the hearing?
No,
Did not?
No.
It just,
I have a picture of it if you want to see
okay.
it.
No, you affirm that you
I
would
mean,
tell
I'm
the
right next to
truth,
it.
so.
It's 20 feet from my house.
So, we'll,
Yeah.
we'll look into that. I mean, it is, as I said, our interest is to ensure that folks are notified, consistent with the regulation. The good news is we're going to have a hearing in, another period of time. It looks like perhaps October 12th, the evening of Thursday, October 12th. So that, we now have another nearly 30 days.
Has that been determined,
On
that's when
that.
we're gonna do that?
That is the date that the clerk says is available on our schedule.
Okay, because I'm not gonna be here.
You're not here. Dave, are you able to make that? The other date is the 26th, and I won't be here, and I hate to put it out much
Well, you can
later.
always open the hearing and then continue it in progress.
Correct, and you could set a non-second or fourth
Yeah.
Thursday to
We
hear
could
it
have a
as
special
well.
hearing.
Well, yeah,
You
I
can
mean,
set a special
you'll
Thursday night
hear
hearing.
You'll hear the testimony and all that kind of stuff, and I can listen to it later on the tape.
Yes, I mean, if you deliberate on the matter, you'll be required, Tom, to, as in other cases, to listen to all of the testimony.
Right.
And we can continue it in progress, so when you are back, we can have the discussion in
Right.
public, for sure.
Right, exactly. Okay, well, thank you. And those points that you made, we'll make sure, as Commissioner Jones said, to look into those, because we want to make sure that our staff is complying with the legal requirements.
Right.
Because, and I can guarantee you that our staff and this commission do not have any prejudgment about the issues. We're not trying to keep this hidden. We're not trying to not have proper, public input. We want to make sure that the public's informed and give you the opportunity to speak.
I just wanted to bring to your attention.
Well, we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sir, you want to state your name and address, please?
Jeff Whelan, 1242 North Union Road, Lebanon.
So, Mr. Whelan, are you going to talk about the issue or the process around the issue?
I was just gonna have a few questions, and I didn't know if it made sense to bring up some ideas, thoughts, and questions that may help prepare the guys for the next meeting, and if you guys are able to answer the questions now, or if we should wait. I don't know if it makes sense to do that now, or if we should wait until later on.
Sounds like testimony.
Yeah, so here's what I'd say. This sounds like testimony to me. I was trying to, as with the other two, it wasn't like we were taking testimony. They had some questions and concerns about process. I'm trying to identify from you if this is more of process or if you're gonna be.
Specific to the site.
So if it's specific to the site, then I would need to, yes, swear you in, but if you are willing to go to the October 12th date and provide that testimony, we can do that too.
Yes.
You would rather do that?
I
But if
would
you have
rather do
things-
that.
I mean, if you have-
I don't
you
want
know
to make a
what-
living and coming in here and making these meetings.
Yeah, it sounds like, you know what you're talking about when the zoning process, you're saying that you want your neighbors or the residents to think about certain subjects?
Well, I want the builders and the potential new owners of the gas station to think about a few things when they come to the meeting as well.
Well, can you
Maybe it
talk,
would
you
help
can talk to
answer
them
some
separately
questions.
about that. I mean, you're familiar with all this stuff. You're kind of in the business.
And do you want to?
So I'd love for you all
Tell me what you want me
offline
to
to
do.
have that. It would be great for you offline to have that conversation with them.
I think there's a few questions for the county though as well. Sewer,
Okay.
as far as utilities and things. I'm not going to waste anybody's time. I just didn't know if it made sense to do that now as opposed to
Yeah, I think it
when
probably
there's a lot
makes
of people here.
sense, that sounds like testimony to me, and I think that makes sense to continue that conversation moving forward
At a later date.
on October the 12th,
Okay.
Thursday, October the 12th.
I think you guys are doing a fine job too.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay.
My name is Nancy Sams. I live on the northwest corner of Green Tree and Summit on 40 acres, where I've been there 31 years.
Ma'am, are you gonna provide testimony here, or
I
you
would
have
like to put
questions about?
something in the record,
Okay,
yes.
so I need you to raise your hand, please, and affirm that you will tell the truth.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I understand.
It is obvious that eventually Green Tree Road will go commercial. That may be many years down the way. This would be our first commercial entity. And it is a problem for the people in the neighborhood. I know that this has not been approved and may not be approved, but I would like to put into the record that should any commercial entity be on our neighborhood generally, Summit or Green Tree, that we do things like having downlights so they don't come into the people's houses. It's very difficult if suddenly we have major lights in our houses. The second one is that whatever entity it is, it be closed during sleeping hours, 11 to 6 or whatever, so we are not constantly being disturbed by people. Those are the two things I have for the record. I don't know that I'll be here on the 12th, but I do think that they need to be considered after the zoning, should it happen. We need to have some courtesy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your
Before you
testimony.
leave the podium, you know.
Ma'am, ma'am,
That's okay.
no,
I was gonna-
you
I was
mind
just-
coming back to the podium to take a question from
Well, actually, I'm not gonna
Commissioner?
ask, I was gonna ask, I was gonna ask a
I thought we only
question.
ask you questions.
No, I wasn't gonna ask you a question. You know, we respect your son, Jonathan, very much,
Thank you.
and our prayers have been with him. We know what he's
Jonathan
been
is
going
home.
through. That's good.
So he's doing extremely well.
He's a regular here,
I
so
know.
he was here
In fact, he-
last Tuesday and the Tuesday before that.
And
so.
he told me what I should ask of you. I'm being my lawyer today.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we appreciate him and your family very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank
Any
you
other
for being
questions?
here
No, I
today.
did not.
Oh, that was it?
Yeah.
Thank you. It's very
Anytime
gracious
we
of
can
you.
praise Jonathan Sams, we do.
Okay, is there anyone else here who wishes to testify? Would you like to come forward, please?
I was not planning, can you hear me?
Can you please?
I was not planning to say anything today.
Can you please state your name and address for the record?
Christine Putvan, 1250 Ironwood Drive, Lebanon, Ohio, 45036, and
And do you swear or affirm that everything you say here will be the truth?
I do.
Great, thank you.
Okay, mostly I have questions. We no longer get the Journal News Pulse, which is where I used to get my information. And I didn't catch, I can hear you, and I can hear you, and just about everybody else I can't hear very well. What was the name of the newspaper that this was put in?
It's called the Journal News of Lebanon and Mason.
And how do you get that newspaper?
I think it's an online newspaper, but it's a Sunday publication also, and I think they throw it in the yard. I mean, that's how I get mine. It
I couldn't
appears
even
in
get
my
the Journal
driveway.
News Pulse without calling them and begging them to please send it to me. So I don't like it when I have no way to know something. So I'd like to know how to look online or how to get a newspaper that will tell me what's going on. So yes, I would like for you to get back with me.
So,
and
ma'am.
let me know how you get onto that.
So we'd be happy to, after the meeting, the clerk can talk to you about how to access our information. We obviously don't have control over the newspaper, so I don't know, that is something that we're all challenged by, is the dwindling newspapers, but we would be happy to share how you can access information on our websites and so forth.
Okay, and that would have this information far enough out for planning purposes?
So we understand that there is some sort of confusion about that we have said we'll, get to the bottom of. So I haven't been able to get into that yet, but we will do that.
Okay, the sign that was put out was about this big. You couldn't even read it. If you're going around a circle and you're trying to pay attention to traffic, I didn't even see it, and I go there practically every day. Somebody told me about it. I stopped my car so that I could see it. We need a bigger sign so people can read it. Is there anyone from PAP Oil here?
Ma'am, there are people here representing the property owner, but we're not going to take testimony from them today. We're going to take testimony from them and all the other parties on Thursday, October the 12th.
At what time?
5 p.m.
Okay, I don't understand. We're here, why don't they talk?
Well, we explained that the reason that we're continuing the hearing is because our law director isn't here, and we need to have him here.
And why isn't your law director here?
Ma'am, it's sometimes schedules happen. I can't speak to that. He's normally here.
I'm just speaking for everybody here. I mean,
We are doing the very best we can under these
this
circumstances.
was
There's nothing
extremely
nefarious.
inconvenient for me, and I've been to 2 other meetings about another subject, both of which were continued. This will be the 3rd time, and every time I've had to cancel other things, so that's why I don't understand
Yeah,
why they don't present.
I understand your frustration. That's also part of the process. We often continue hearings because we want to hear additional information, or we want time to research an issue. So I understand your frustration, but it is not uncommon for us to have, even when the law director is here, it's not uncommon for us to continue a hearing because we simply need more time or more information before rendering a decision. We don't know until we're in the middle of the hearing, you know, what the evidence is going to share, but I apologize for the inconvenience. It was unavoidable, and, you know, we're gonna do our best to notify folks that in 30 additional days that we're going to continue this hearing, and it'll be in the evening, so more people can participate.
I agree with everything in the letter that the first gentleman sent to you, and he just gave a copy to a few people.
It's in the record.
In addition to that, there are 2 gas stations within about a mile of where they want to put this gas station. One on Cincinnati-Dayton Road, one on 63. I don't see a need for this gas station. Plus, I just, like many, don't like to see certain development in this very pretty rural area. Thank you.
Our public hearing at 9:45.
So we have a public hearing at 9:45, so I will take a motion to continue this hearing, but before I do, the clerk has clarified for us that our code says that notice is 20 days prior to hearing notices, so I'm just following up on your questions around that, and 10 days prior for newspaper notices. But the bigger issue that you raise about where the phone number and the website, will continue to effort through those, but we misspoke around the 30 days, it's 20 and 10.
But I think it's good feedback about the zoning. Michelle's our zoning director. If we're using a small sign, especially on these large parcels, we need to have a bigger billboard with maybe interchangeable dates, you know, hearing shall be, and you can just put in the date. But yeah, I'll make a motion to continue this hearing until October 12th. Or 12th or 14th?
It's the
12th at 5 PM.
12th till 5 PM.
Second.
roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Great, thank you. The next item for public hearing was scheduled for 9:45. It is a hearing for hospital facility improvement revenue bond for Colonial Senior Services for a senior living facility in Mason.
Mr. Dean is here, I think.
Wanted to stay.
You know how to clear a room.
Not the first, won't be the last. Good to start. I don't know if we need to formally open the public hearing, but we'll just deem it to be open if not. My name is Michael Dean, again from last week from Densmore and Shoal down in Cincinnati. Last week was here with my colleague Josh Grossman, who's in our Columbus office, who is serving as bond counsel for this transaction. The proposed transaction is the issuance of not to exceed $25 million of tax-exempt hospital revenue improvement bonds. The purpose of the bonds would be to acquire the long-term care facility at 5373 Merton Drive, Mason, Ohio. It is currently being operated as a for-profit entity. Community First Solutions, so the umbrella corporation for Colonial Senior Services, is looking to acquire that facility and operate it. They are a 501c3 nonprofit. These bonds, again, would be tax-exempt 501c3 conduit, nonprofit conduit revenue bonds for this purpose. So this public hearing is required by the tax code. Notice was published of this public hearing on, September 1st, so on Friday in the Journal News. I have evidence of publication. I just got that yesterday, Tina, so I can shoot that over to you for the record. So we are properly noticed, and again, I thought we'd have more people to speak. Just kidding. Yeah, so I would just stop there, and we can entertain questions either from the board or the public at this point.
I have no questions. Just for the record, this is not this is an administrative hearing required by the code, and the taxpayers of Warren County are not at risk at this transaction, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Very good.
Stated very
It's
clearly
not
in
an
the notice.
administrative hearing, though, it's just a public hearing.
It's an administrative function, right, that we are taking on.
Sure. Yes.
I'll make a motion, hearing no other public input, to close this public hearing.
Second.
Yes?
I'll make a motion to approve the issuance of these TEFRA Hospital Facility Improvement Revenue Bonds for the Colonial Senior Services Living Center in Mason.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.
Thank you all for your time.
Great, thank you for being here.
So you got like 3 hours of billable time.
Yeah.
for like 3 minutes.
Always love these
So-
contentious public hearings.
And I believe the fee was what, Josh, or Mike?
The fee was calculated on the expected amount of $21.6 million of issuance at $15,800. So that will be in the county's checking account at closing, which should be in the next couple of weeks. So I'll work with Tina and Tiffany to get an invoice together on that, wire instructions, everything, so make sure the money gets in the
Perfect.
pockets. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I do
Great.
have signature pages. I'm going to leave these with Tina. She's going to coordinate. It's just commissioners and Tina to sign. And I will pick those up in the next few days. But thank you all for your time.
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Sheriff, you're gonna tell us that the cost of food is going way down and we need a new contract because it's so low that you're gonna be returning money to the county treasury.
Yes.
Sheriff, I thought you showed up because our last hearing was getting a little heated, and you guys rolled in right at the perfect time.
It was actually funny. I was thinking the same thing. Once I sat down, I'm thinking, what did we just get into?
Yeah,
So,
it's good timing.
yeah. How's everybody doing?
Great, how are you?
No complaints.
Good.
Got it better than I deserve.
I hear you.
All right, so you may have had a chance to review this. We come to you to talk about our Aramark food service contract. As you may recall, we started a new contract in October of '21. So we're getting ready to start the third year of this current contract here at the 1st of October. We experienced a little bit of this, the increases, inflations, a little bit with our Keefe commissary contract too. We were able to resolve that kind of really in the profits that the county receives from that versus totally increasing prices, things like that. So it was more of a sharing trade-off. But in this case, we were informed by Aramark that they are seeking a 25% increase in the next year's contract. And under the current contract, and has in the past, we typically decide those increases by the CPI. And in this contract, as in the past, there is, if you can't agree to what those numbers are, it could be a maximum of a 10% increase. And they had explained to us and came and met with us and showed us some numbers that they are taking a loss on this contract because of increases in food costs, so on and so forth. So, you know, we listened to them and took their information and then started exploring on our own with some of our colleagues across the state. And the closest, Butler County, had just resolved theirs at a bid out, and their contract increased 45% from the previous one, and that was bidding out their contract. Now, Aramark has been a good partner for us. I mean, they're business, but they've been a good partner for us, and it's been bid out a number of times over the years, but they kind of have the lion's share of these type of contracts in Ohio. You probably know that. And we're finding similar numbers. Some of our other colleagues in the counties where there's been significant increases, some of those, even though percentages are common across the board, some counties are larger or smaller than us. At the end of the day, what we're seeing is what they produce at us, it really does kind of support their ask. For the 25% increase, we could go out to bid at the end of this contract, which is what they easily could do and have done. It would save us probably about 20% increase, or at least close to that. We can agree to this for a year, 2 years. These are, I think it's a 5-year contract, but you can agree year to year as we have, and sometimes we've gone out to bid. So There's supporting documents in there. There's supporting data from some of the other counties. So that's kind of really our pitch to you, and then with some questions about whether or not we should or shouldn't consider offering them up that 25% increase versus, I think the current CPI for this right now is 7.1%. And we did get an 8.5% increase this past year, so.
So I just want to understand some of the facts set here. So you are currently in a 5-year contract, and we are in year 2 of that contract, is that correct?
We're nearing the end of year 2.
Nearing the end of year 2.
We'll be starting 3 here next month.
Okay, so heading into year 3 of the contract provides a CPI adjustment in the contract cost, or if there isn't an agreement of what that is, it's at 10% for the next year.
Correct.
And presumably, things can continue conversation, and maybe for year 4, you're in a different place.
Correct.
Okay. And so when you say, for year 2, there was a 7-point-something increase, was that CPI or at that time, or was that something that you negotiated between CPI and that 10% cap?
This year we're currently in, which is year 2, is an 8.5% increase over year 1.
So that was it was part of the contract?
Yeah, that was, well, it was the CPI and then agreed upon price. So the contract year that we're in now, that is closing at the end of the month, had increased 8.5% from the year prior.
And that was based on the CPI?
Correct.
Okay, so it wasn't a negotiated price, you went with what the CPI was?
Correct.
Okay.
So
Okay.
why, so the actual increase you're now recommending is to commence what year?
Year 3, which starts October of this year.
And if we did nothing, it would increase by what pursuant to the current contract?
Well, if we went by the CPI, it would be a 7.1% increase. Now, either side of us, county or them, have the ability to, with notice, go out for bid, which I'm all about doing whatever is right for the county, but I would fully anticipate them giving notice to go out for bid on this instead of accepting the 7.1% increase within the contract
And you
obligation.
think they would bid the 25% increase, or they would bid something higher than that?
Well, Butler County just did that with a rebid, and theirs went up 45%. And then in the data that we provide, Knox County had a 40% increase. Highland County, actually, the commissioners agreed to a 45% increase. I'm not sure what circumstances were there. There was 8%. Ashtabula County up in northeast Ohio went up 100%. And then Lorain County has gone up 20 and 28% each of the last 2 years.
So Sheriff, just so we're going into year 3, in the contract, they're allowed to revise it. They can get an inflation kicker. That's either the inflation rate, or if we don't agree on the inflation rate, 10%.
Correct.
And so you're saying that you want us to amend the contract to say 10% or 25%?
We're actually asking you to consider the 25% to prevent a rebid, them putting it out to rebid the contract. It's very likely that Aramark's going to win the contract back because there's very little competition that can provide that.
So 5-year contract really means nothing because both of us have outs.
Both of us have
And then
outs.
they can say, go ahead and go rebid.
Correct.
And they're going to be the only bidder, and the market, with the research you've done, is showing 40 to 45% increases.
Correct.
When that's happened. You're saying, have you talked to them, and this 25% is agreeable, or you're kind of
Yes.
guessing?
Yes, no, we met with them a week ago, maybe 2 weeks, and that was their proposal. We were trying to, at the time of the discussion, we thought, well, maybe we would consider with the county 12.5 this year coming up, 12.5 the next year, and there's some other financial things in the contract where they award the county back each year $10,000 the life of this contract. So life of the contract, they have to provide back to the county $50,000. That was something that we would consider throwing them that bone and take that out of there to offset the 25% proposal.
And that would be good for how long? A 3-year period set? Or
Which part?
If we agreed to increase it by 25%, what's the new contract terms? For how long?
Well, my impression would be that if they would go 25% increase in this third year, it would go back to the original language of whatever the CPI is the following year after that.
As long, I trust your opinion on this, you've researched it, as long as then there is no rebid opportunity during the remaining 3 years, I think that's fair, that, hey, we're giving it to you now, and we'll give you a CPI increase, whatever that is.
Okay.
But that's it. There's no outs after a year of, oh, wait, we did, because we're trying to be good to them right now.
Right.
Of, inflation's, you wouldn't expect to do what it's done the last couple of years, that, hey, we're giving you a price adjustment, but this is the contract for the next 3 years,
Right.
and neither one of us are rebidding it.
Okay. And then I want to make sure I follow you, so with that language that they would agree to, the 25% starting year 3, which is next month, and then the contract language would remain the same as it has in the past. There could be a CPI increase the remaining 2 years, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair, because, yeah, the CPI now is, it'll trending at 4%, something like that. I mean, it could be, it's 4 or 5. It's not going to be another 20-something percent.
Correct. Correct. The CPI will not be another 20-something. So, I would agree. So I guess I want to make sure when we get back to them at the table that I don't misrepresent is the county would consider the 25%. We don't want to turn right around and have to rebid this thing after you got your 25%, you take your ball and go home. But we would honor the CPI increases the following 2 years.
Right, and I would take out that language, if we don't agree on the CPI. No, the CPI is the CPI. I mean, it's not, whatever the published Department of Labor CPI number is, that's what you're both agreeing to. That's going to be the increase in the 13th month and the, 25th month or whatever.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any issues with them along those lines. They really haven't been in the past, but who knows? But I just want to make sure that when we go back to the table that we're representing exactly your thought process.
At least that's my thought. I
Yeah.
mean, my colleagues think.
I'm okay with that.
Sheriff, I'm curious about what the actual dollar amount in terms of increase to your budget that
Well, it's
is.
going to be, of course, it fluctuates, but it's going to be pretty close to $100,000 a year increase with the number of people that we have in bed. And there's fluctuations because there's not as many people in jail for a period of time, and then it goes up.
But if you were providing your budget, you would just
It'd
add
be
$100,000 onto it.
increase on
That's
their
helpful.
budgeted food service contract.
And what's the
Yes.
total, so people understand what's your total budget amount in a year?
Oh, my goodness, it's 23, almost 23 million, I think.
Right, yeah, it's
And
one of the
But that's
largest.
for both road and detention.
Yeah, JOA and the road. Oh, yeah, certainly, it's by far the
Yeah,
largest.
it's the largest piece of our budget, so this $100,000 is actually a very small percentage of your total budget, that's the point I
That
was
is
making.
correct. Still $100,000, but it
Yeah,
is.
and we care about every
Yeah.
penny.
But again, I think the public should know, what you've negotiated relative to the cost per meal, in my mind, is incredibly low.
It is incredibly low. And I think at the end of this, if it goes up 25%, it sticks in my mind that it went up to $1.50 per
Yeah,
meal.
it's still incredibly low for the taxpayer. So, yeah,
Right.
I don't have a problem with that at all. If they've been a good partner, they've been a good partner. The policies in Washington, this is one more effect that it's just, the inflation is literally having real-world effects all the way down to even our cost of our jail. And so I think that's fair to both parties, that we say, we'll give you the 25%, but it's no more rebidding after one more year, or that, it's a 3-year contract, and they get whatever the published CPI is 4 years, 2 and 3.
We will just need to make sure that the language is maintained for breach, so that while there would be no language for termination For no cause, we would want to maintain
Sure,
our
for-
breach,
right, yeah,
our
of course.
breach termination language.
Okay.
And I think Dave's completely right. I think I think nobody is disputing that costs are going up. We want to be a good partner too, and the fact that you're here, validating that is, for all intents and purposes, enough for me. But I do, at the same token, to have security on the back end, I think, to be able to get a commitment for the 3 years, we want to give them something, but we'd also like to have something in return. And the fact that they force us into a rebid situation for which they volunteer, they will be the only bidder and will stick it to us,
Right.
is not, they didn't say that. That is how I am interpreting.
Oh, no, I'm with you. The fact that they came to the table to pitch this at least tells us something.
Yeah.
Because they just won that contract, like I said, in Butler County for a 45% increase. So they could have done that without any
They're
conversation.
trying to play ball. They're trying to play ball with
Yeah.
you,
And we
And it
appreciate
costs
that.
them time and money too, to be able to do all those kind of
Yeah.
things, so.
So apropos, I'm agreeing with all this, but how is it that they can manage to serve a meal for $1.50 or whatever it is? And what is the difference between, which seems incredibly inexpensive, but then we're providing from the same source staff meals for $5 a meal, which also seems very economical. But what are we feeding our staff at $5, and we're not feeding them the same thing as the inmates? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, there's a little difference in the meal options for staff, and I don't have that menu in front of you. I think there is one menu in there that talks about the meal, but they're also buying the food that they're serving at the inmates are just extremely bulk amounts of food at a discounted rate, and you could see those same things across the country, really, with that
So
type
in
of
other words,
food
is
service.
the difference is that the staff is getting a different type of meal that you can't buy in bulk, and therefore it's more expensive?
You're probably gonna see a staff member probably have a cheeseburger versus spaghetti
Or a
that
cheese
is.
sandwich.
Correct. Like it's been said here before, you're not staying at a Holiday Inn. We're not trying to
Correct.
encourage
We don't
great
leave the
meals
light on for you.
But for our employees that are there during the entire shift, we want them to have a normal, good meal. I completely get the difference, so.
Okay. All right, very good.
Everybody good?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Sheriff.
much.
Okay, so now, unless Tiffany or Martin have something else, I will take a motion for executive session.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session pursuant to 121.22G2 to discuss acquisition of real estate pursuant to 121.22G8 to discuss the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with a request for assistance in an economic development project.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Grossman?
Yes.
Mr. Young?
Yes.